So I will call this August 7th regular meeting of the DRB to order. Thank you all for coming and being flexible with us being remote. I will turn over to Meredith for a review of our remote meeting procedures, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. You'll have to excuse me a little bit. I've got slightly different setup than I'm used to, so I won't always be looking right at the camera. Okay, so, oh, and of course, where did I put my script? Here we go. All right, so for those who are viewing tonight's Development Review Board meeting via ORCA Media, you can participate in the meeting via the Zoom platform through either video or telephone access options. So for the full video experience, you can type this link into your web browser and it should bring you right into the meeting. I'll get a little notice to let you in. Alternatively, you can dial in using this phone number and this passcode, meeting ID actually. Put that in when prompted. If you're having problems accessing the meeting, please email me at mcrandall@montpelier-vt.org. I will be monitoring my email throughout the meeting. For those who are already participating in the Zoom meeting, turning on your video is optional. For everyone attending, please keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. This will reduce background noise. And please note that the Zoom chat function should be used only for troubleshooting or logistics questions. If you have a question or comment about a specific item on the agenda, one of the specific applications, please raise your hand either physically if you have your video on or by using the raise hand button on your Zoom toolbar. And then once you have been called on by the chair, please make sure to provide your full name and address for the record if you're not one of the applicants. That way we'll know who's making the comments. Please note that in the event the public is unable to access today's meeting, it will need to be continued to a time, place, and certain, and I would get notice of that access issue through my email. I'll now hand the meeting back over to the chair.
All right, thank you, Meredith. I'll accept a motion for the agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Sharon, second by Alex. All those in favor of approving the agenda? Well, sorry, we should probably do a roll call since it is the Zoom platform. Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Myself, Rob votes yes. Did I miss anybody?
Nope, that's 6.
All righty, wonderful. Thank you. We have an agenda for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us over our Zoom platform. We have 2 applications for this evening. Thank you, the applicants, for your patience too in the delay. Obviously, it was warranted due to the flood and whatnot, but here we are. And without further ado, we can move on to our first order of business for the evening, which would be the 11 9th Street application related to a fence construction. And who is here to present on the 9th Street application?
Hi, me and my husband are present. My name is Alyssa and this is Eldon.
Hello.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this application this evening that is not the applicants? Okay, looks like we are swearing in 2 people as witnesses. So all those interested in providing testimony on this application, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn in as a witness? There we go. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
We do.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Meredith, do you want to start by just a brief overview? Then we'll turn it over to the applicants, and then the DRB will proceed with questions or comments or however we do it.
I'm going to just keep this really short.
Yeah.
This is an application for a fence that is in the side yard. The request is to have it more than the standard 6 feet max height because it's acting as a privacy fence. I don't have authority to grant that, but the board does. So the board is here. There's no, specific criteria. It's not like a waiver or a variance per se. It's a board exception that they can make, including for privacy reasons, screening. So that's all I got, really.
Great. So we'll have the applicants, give a little presentation, but I'll just let you know that, like Meredith said, this is very brief. It's related to the, the fence. I'm sure you have a number of other great things going on with this project, but the DRB is, very interested in your reasons for specifically of the fence, the extension of height. Tell us what you're dealing with, and welcome to the DRB.
Sure. Hi, thanks for the welcome. It's nice to meet all of you. Thanks for being here. We are requesting an 8-foot fence for a length of about 35 feet between the back edge of the back of our house, 35 feet into the backyard that goes between our home and 9 Vine Street, the Nicolettes. Ourselves and our neighbors are in agreement that an 8-foot fence would provide some privacy. Since we moved into our home at 11 Vine Street, there used to be no access to the backyard at all. And since we've moved in, we put in a back door and a window, which seems very reasonable. However, the proximity to 9 Vine Street, the window and the door now basically have eye level access from our living room into their living room. So particularly in the winter and particularly at night, but really any time of day, we basically have eye level eyesight to one another from our living rooms, which we have an amiable relationship, but don't want to hang out when we choose not to. So we are hoping to put an 8-foot fence at, about 35 feet from the back of our house that would block that eye level meeting, essentially. So that's, I would say sums up our application for why we are requesting this variation in what the city usually allows.
And maybe I'll just throw in there that we kind of were brainstorming with those guys, what the best way to go about it is. And we all kind of want there to be vegetation there as well. But in the meantime, sort of to make everything livable in both living rooms, just the privacy fence seemed like the best option.
Yeah.
So you're saying the long-term plan is to have a vegetation screen between the two, but the fence is the immediate fix.
Yeah, over the next 2 decades, we hope they have already planted some trees, and we plan to plant some trees, but those take time to grow. And so in the meantime, we would like to have this fence to provide some privacy for both families.
Wonderful. Sharon.
I thought in the application you had asked for an 8.5-foot high fence, and you just kept saying 8 foot.
You're right.
Which is it?
8.5.
Yep.
8 foot.
Okay.
6. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, what we did to figure that out was kind of we stood in our living room and they stood in theirs, and it was where are the 2 tallest people's eyes not going to meet anymore? And then we had a stick outside that we had measurements on, and we were 8 foot, if we're both standing up, we're still seeing each other, so maybe just get that extra. So then 8.6 was kind of the perfect number for the privacy factor.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think it's great that you and your neighbor both very much agree with it. I think that very much narrows our scope of review of this application. So I guess just one question for Meredith, so there are fence, this is a side yard fence. Is it the front yard that we have less leeway on when it comes to height variance?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah. Side and rear, you have more leeway, and it's a lot less well defined about what exceptions are allowed. There's general categories of exceptions versus that front yard fence where it's very, very specific. And the other one of the things that I thought made this one a little bit easier is that it's not like it's the entire side property boundary. And so the fence isn't going to be interfering in, lines of sight, anything like that, along the road, even pedestrian lines of sight. But yeah, you've got, it's the front yard that's much more strict.
Any other DRB members have any questions?
Nope. No questions from me.
None from me either. If they were all this straightforward, we'd have 20-minute meetings.
I guess I'd like to make a motion if that's acceptable. The motion to grant privacy fence exception in the usual maximum fence height of section 3101E, allowing applicants request for an 8'6" tall, 35-foot long fence at 11 Vine Street, adjacent to the boundary with 9 Vine Street, as presented in the application number Z20230076 and supporting and supplemental materials.
Motion by Sharon,
I'll second.
second by Catherine. So we have a motion on the table for approval of the application as submitted. And do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will start with a roll call vote. Since Sharon's at the top of my screen. Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Brian? You're muted.
Yeah. Yes, Rob, sorry.
No, you're all right. Michael?
Yes.
Rob, myself votes yes. That is a unanimously approved as yes.
Great.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, Eldon, just so you know, the formal decision isn't until you get the written decision, because there were no conditions. The written decision and the permit will get issued at the same time. We'll probably just email or call you when those are ready, because mail in Montpelier is still a little tricky.
Yeah.
And so we'll let you know when those are ready, and you'll need to come down and get those. And there's technically a 30-day appeal period after that written decision. Anything you do in that window is just going to be at your own risk. Given that nobody has shown up to complain about your fence and you already have an agreement with your neighbors, the risk there is probably pretty low.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time and reading the application, and so grateful for the approval.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Okay. Next order of business is 6 Parkside Drive. So who is here tonight to represent the applicant on 6 Parkside Drive?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Jolly, and myself and my wife Jean are here.
Jay Jolly's here also.
Bill and Jean. All right, welcome. Thank you very much. We'll just hold on one second. Anyone else here on the platform to speak on this application?
I wanted to share some thoughts about it as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bill. Great. So we will swear those in wishing to speak on this application. All those interested in providing testimony in this application, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn in as a witness?
I assume then we will need to open the camera.
Well, you can if you'd like, but
We trust you,
not
Bill.
required.
Oh no, that's okay. Let's see if it works.
There we go.
It does work.
Beautiful.
It does
Oh,
work.
it does work. Oh, right hand.
Great.
Hold on a
Thank
second.
you very much.
There we go.
We're
There
ready.
we go.
All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
I
I
do.
do.
Ready. I hear three
Excellent.
yeses. We are good. Great. So I guess we'll start. Meredith, you can give us a brief overview of procedural status where we're at on this application. And we'll turn it over to you, Bill, for the just telling us what you're doing here.
Okay, so this is again a little bit similar, though slightly more complicated than the last one, in that normally boundary line adjustments are something that are approved administratively. In this particular instance, there's a little bit of a twist, so that as zoning administrator, I really didn't feel like I could approve it. And I actually touched base with the city's attorneys about that to make sure. So generally speaking, if a boundary line adjustment creates a nonconformity, creates a situation where a parcel no longer complies with a dimensional requirement, and creates that condition, then you can't do a boundary line adjustment. You have to do a subdivision, or in some cases, you have to then go to the board to have the approval happen. In this instance, the boundary line adjustment doesn't actually create what I'm referring to as the nonconformity, the fact that one of the parcels doesn't have any frontage. That nonconformity is already there. It was created in a prior subdivision under a prior set of zoning regulations. What this boundary line adjustment does is it reverses that condition. So instead of, I'm just going to say parcel A having no frontage, now parcel B will have no frontage. It's directly reversing it, changing the access easement, changing which parcel has the frontage. I, as a zoning administrator with very, very limited ability to work in the gray zone, can't make that approval. But the board has that authority, and it does not make it a subdivision. No new parcel is being created. So it's still not a subdivision. So we don't have to look at every single subdivision requirement. I've included in the staff report a few of the ones that seem to be applicable, or that where neighbors have raised some questions, like about stormwater or about water sewer, that generally you don't look at for a boundary line adjustment, but I've thrown those in there in the staff report in response to those questions and thoughts, just to make sure that you had the full picture. But there's nothing being created here. We're just adjusting some of the prior conditions of approval from, can't remember if it was 2003 or 2005 off the top of my head.
Great.
All right. So Mark, Mark, Bill, and Jolly, we'll turn over to you.
Bill and Jean.
Bill and Jean.
Bill and Jean.
Sorry, that's
Bill and Jean.
That's right. No,
Bill and Jean. I just, for a graphic while you're going here, since we aren't in the room, I'm gonna share my screen and put your survey of your proposal up, and then you can go ahead and sort of talk a little bit about your project and where you came and where you're going, and what the board is reviewing.
Okay, I'll start by saying that we really have nothing to add. We feel very strongly that Meredith has done an excellent job of stating the facts in this situation, and that our motivation really is just to move ownership to the parcel that we live on. That's really it. It's probably something that could have been done years ago, like since 2003 or even 2005. But we felt that maybe we probably should get around to it, and all we want to do is change the ownership to the land we live on. That's really pretty much it. And I think that's all that this does. Ownership of the right of way or the easement in common that Meredith refers to in her statements.
Okay.
So obviously, the lot we live on is the one with the house on it, and that's what we're doing, just moving the ownership of the right of way and the easement in common to the lot we live on that the house is on, instead of the one that the house is not on that we don't live on. That's really all that's happening.
Cool. So you're lot 2 there in this
Excuse me?
drawing?
It's always been confusing to me whether it's lot 1 or 2, but
In
it's
this
the
map.
lot that has the house on.
Yeah, in the drawing, it's pretty small right now, but I see it as lot 2, and then lot
I think
1
it says
is
lot
large.
2. Okay.
Yeah, I usually refer to it as the smaller lot, the larger lot, a lot easier, but yeah, it's A to B, either one, it's from 1 to 2.
I think I read something in the application about that lot 1 and there's retained some kind of access easement. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what your question is.
That there is. I was just, I thought that in the application it referred to an easement, so that there's still access to lot 1. Is that correct?
If I understand your question right, I think Miranda states it's in her documents that originally the easement belonged, and it still does, belongs to lot 1. And they convey that to lot 2. Well, all we're doing now is having the easement belong to lot 2 that will be conveyed to lot 1. So they're both, it's in a sense in common. And I think it states that on the site plan that this is an easement in common. From what I understand, and really I'd refer to a land surveyor who did this, but the easement in common means it belongs to both properties. They're both allowed to use that easement. Did that answer your question? Because I'm not sure I really fully understood it.
Meredith, can you just clarify there for briefly? I mean, like I'm thinking what was I saw in the application in the staff report. I thought that there was an easement that was.
Yeah. So here, these arrows here show where the current property boundary is. So there's a current property line here, so that lot 2 ends at this point.
Okay.
And lot 2,
got-
so where
red
Bill
right
and
now?
Jean live, right? They have a access and utility easement over this land, this driveway, to get to Parkside Drive. And the subdivision in 2003 or 2005, it's in the staff report, laid out a access easement here that actually was, I think, less than 50 feet. Now those parcel lines are going to be erased. So, and a new one drawn here. Just this little bit here is going to be drawn so that all of this existing gravel driveway, all of this 50-foot wide and a little bit wider here land will then be transferred to lot 2. But proposed 50-foot access and utility easement to lot 1. There's the access and utility easement over this driveway it'll actually be widened under the legal language to 50 feet, which is the sort of max that's required in our regulations, so that lot Now, lot 1 is the one that has to travel over lot 2's land,
Okay,
right? But the
Yeah.
easement is for the benefit of lot 1. So it's tricky about the ownership. You're owning the land, and then there's an easement for the benefit of the property that doesn't own the land.
right. Okay.
So yes, that easement will be there, and the application package, I believe, had language in there about the easement. I'm sorry, I've done so
Yeah,
many
it
things
did.
so far. It's been a bit of a blur over the last month. So that would be recorded.
Thanks for clarifying that. That's what I thought I understood it to say, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Meredith.
You're welcome, Bill.
Anyone else on the board have any questions, or do you all feel confident about, the easement and what line's going where, and still understand what's going on here? Seeing nods, yes. Okay, well, let's go in and look at some issues here, or some items highlighted in the staff report. Just overall here, it does appear that we're sort of simplifying things for the future, and that is the goal of this. I'm not seeing this as some loophole attempt to do a subdivision without doing a subdivision. This seems pretty straightforward cleanup effort to me. So we'll go through the report here and just take a look. I think some of this is in many ways reviewing this as if it were a subdivision, when this is I think Meredith determined that this was a boundary line adjustment. I tend to agree. So one of the things we look at in a subdivision is review is to making sure that it doesn't create any nonconformities. Well, I don't think that Meredith identified any nonconformities to exist, and this is actually it's the word nonconformities. It's probably that we missed. It's probably resolving them. It's making things a little bit more straightforward, as if this sort of property were developed in present day with the present day regs. So I don't see any issue with the first item here. That would be, if you're following along, that's page 7 of the staff report, and with reference to section 3510 of the regulations. And moving down here, page 8 of the staff report, we've got the configuration of the parcel boundaries. I think looking at the map here, how this is being drawn, I don't see issue there. Now that it's staff, I feel like my cursor skipped down and I skipped a couple pages for some reason. Unless I missed something.
Rob, your audio's a little shaky. Maybe stop sharing your screen. Your bandwidth may not be quite enough for audio, visual, and sharing screen.
Here we go. Is that better?
It is better.
Wonderful.
I can share screen if we need to again.
No, I think we're good. Yeah, my computer's clicked down to page 7 of the staff report. So on page 4, which is the beginning of the staff analysis, we have some comments about the existing parcels and the minimum frontage. This is sections 30,002 through 2003 of the dimensional standards. We don't see any issues there. This adjustment's not really changing any of that. And board members, any comments, seeing differently? All right.
A lot of head shaking.
Seeing none, seeing affirmative head shaking. I'll go down and, there are some comments here, raising no issues about stormwater management. Once again, not much is changing as far as the development of the parcel. We're just changing the line really to sort of update things to the present use and, configuration here. I think the same goes for, vehicle access and circulation, which is section 3010 on page 6. Parking and loading areas, we have a similar thing where we, don't see any issues. Don't see any changes. I guess now we're back to where I started on page 7 about the nonconformities. And I don't see much of an issue here. It seems a little straightforward to me.
Did Mark want to testify about something?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Mark, how would you like to chime in here?
Well, excuse me. Thanks for including me. I'm Mark Billion, and my wife Ann Bryn and I live at 37 Bailey. We're one of the neighbors that were notified about the application. And we've been neighbors with Bill and Jean since they first constructed their house many years ago. And they've been terrific neighbors to us, allowing us to access the park through the land behind our home. They've cleared trails for us, and a couple years ago, Bill and I worked together on building an access bridge so that others in the neighborhood could use it. So, so we're really familiar with the area, the property. Bill and Jean, I don't know if Meredith told you, but I recently went through the same process looking at a boundary line adjustment because we also had a non-conforming property. There had been some changes made to our house that ate up the setbacks. So we ended up moving one of our rear pins on our property with the help of Rick Bell, just to bring the property back into a conforming status. So we had to go through all the same process, including the state's waste stormwater process, and we had to retain the help of an engineer to get that approved. So, with all of that in mind, we completely believe in the boundary line process, boundary line adjustment process. It's a really great way for us to head off problems that we would probably encounter in a few years if we decided to sell our home or change its use. So we completely support Bill and Jean's boundary line adjustment application. And as Bill said, it was a terrific document, Meredith. Thank you for all the work you put into it. It really helped me understand how those items are, impact this. So you might ask, why am I here? Why am I speaking? And it's because the last time I appeared before the DRB, it was also to address this property. This was when Bill and Jean were first considering building their house. And at that meeting, the chair, I believe, was Phil Zallinger, and Phil politely listened to me talk about my concerns about stormwater. And when I was done, he told me that since I'm not an engineer, nor was I represented by an engineer, there really wasn't anything they could do to respond to my concerns. I'm not an engineer, and neither are my neighbors. And all we can do is, as members of the neighborhood, is we kind of respond to stormwater events like the recent one we had, which resulted in a great deal of damage on our home and then to neighbors. So, that's why I'm sort of looking to Meredith and the DRB team to act as our advocates, because you all know what the regulations are, and the best way to protect Jean and Bill's property and also ours. So again, I just want to say that we support the application. And I know there is no application, there's no proposal right now to develop lot 1. So there shouldn't be any change in stormwater events based upon the boundary line. But should things change in the future, I guess we're going to look to you, the board, just to guide us through how do we navigate this process, just to ensure that Bill and Jean are protected and all of our neighbors are protected as well. So that's all I wanted to say.
I think the key part of one of the things you said there is that any future development, like then if there were any kind of development out there, that's when stormwater review would kick in. There's like a bunch of places and opportunities to do that, whereas I don't feel like it. I'm unfamiliar with it having been stormwater being associated with just a simple boundary adjustment. That's not usually when it does kick in. Although it sounds like it might have from you previously, and I don't know about that, but so I mean I think everybody's certainly got stormwater in the forefront of their minds at this point, and certainly any future development I think would cause a review of that.
Really? Yeah, I mean, I think that feasibly there could be a way and a configuration of the adjustment of this line that could make it more difficult to install, stormwater systems when it comes to the development of, one of these lots. I think that would be the sort of focus of our review here, if any, when it comes to stormwater. I think it's, it's important that, your 50-foot easement there for the access road, that's pretty standard. That provides plenty for development related to stormwater, along a road accessing the lot 1. Yeah, I think it's great points to ask that question at this juncture. But be on notice that yes, those reviews are very very detailed when it comes to the time for development in the next phase of anything. Any more questions, comments from board members in this application? I feel satisfied.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I don't have any questions germane to this particular application, but I'm totally mystified why the adjustment we're being asked to make wasn't the one that was set up in 2003 or whenever the lots were divided. Why didn't
I'll be glad to answer that. In 2003, we thought we would build this house and then build another house on the second lot. But our lives have changed. And so this is our home.
Right. So you wanted the easement with where you plan to live eventually.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. We were much younger then.
Weren't we all?
I had a question more for Meredith on procedure as we move from the discussion into an action. I know we have the recommended action from the staff report. We discussed the easement just as we were sort of setting the stage for this. Just curious as to whether there would traditionally be any clarification around the easement in the language on the action.
So, I mean, it says as presented in the application. I guess you could add in to transfer the land, comma, the 50.1 feet of frontage, and the utility and access easement from to the other. It's putting in the transfer of the easement is a little bit funkier because the original easement was a different width. So, I mean, you could fit the easement in there somewhere in that sentence.
It is included in the application though, so that if
Right.
we reference the application, we could go with that.
Yeah, and that's why I said as presented in the application and supporting materials. So I think it's clear that that's rolled in if you're transferring the frontage and the land.
And would it also be covered by the survey plat?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the survey plot that's being approved.
Right. So that would be on record for public view.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, given that it's the same owner for both lots at this juncture, I don't see a reason to necessarily include it. If it was different owners at this point, I would think that putting in the condition execution of the easement part of approval would be my move.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
here,
we
here
can
it's-
also, I mean, we required, recording of the easement language with the plat for the subdivision recently on
Street.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be another condition that the easement be recorded at the same time as the plat. That's not a bad point. Because that way we know it happens, right? Versus it just not happening. And so that easement is not officially created. I mean, you have it, it says proposed easement on the survey plat. It doesn't actually say the easement. And once the easement is recorded, it's there, it's attached to the land. It doesn't matter about the owners. So thank you for catching that miss. I think
So-
that would be my recommendation.
So we should add language to the motion saying to incorporate the newly defined easement.
Yeah, I think that should be one of the conditions. So if you give me just a minute. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I've got to go back to 5-7 Vine. So so we could probably add at the end. So shall record the final survey plat, blah, 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 blah. And then 2 the access and utility easement approved herein.
Did you get that, Catherine?
Oh, I don't know if I got the exact language.
I'm like, I don't have it in front of me, so
Hold
it's gonna be
on.
not being
I
used.
say it again, I do have my
Yeah,
pen right here.
Hold on
So-
1 second. I can also, So, so in the condition of approval, after it says applicant shall record, put in a little number 1 before the final survey plat.
Mhm.
And then at the very end, do an and 2, the access and utility easement approved herein. And that way the language for that easement needs to get recorded when the survey plat is recorded. And that's within 180 days. So within 6 months, Bill and Jean. So you've got time to get a lawyer to draft up exactly how that easement language looks.
Guess it might be minutia, but we're not technically necessarily approving the easement. Maybe we're saying that, we're requiring the execution of the easement as shown on the survey plot,
Yep.
proving the adjustment.
Yep, that way we're not adjusting the land, having that get recorded and then the easement not happening. to grant the access and the utility right of way.
Just quick question, man. Is it possible to use the same wording that was in the subdivision? Just change 25 feet to 50 feet?
I would run it by an attorney.
Hmm.
I would, because I mean, that was, 20 years ago. I would run it by an attorney.
Okay.
I mean, you have that prior language, so they should be able to, that has all the references to the deeds and everything. They should be able to take that and tweak it based on the new configuration pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any further comments or questions?
I'll accept a motion.
I'll second the motion.
How about let's have somebody make it first?
Make the motion.
Yeah.
Catherine, I think you're the
Bob
one who
said
has it
it.
I
written
think I
down.
can try for the motion, but Meredith, can you jump in if I didn't catch it quite right?
Sure. When
Thanks.
we get to the discussion part, I'll flag if anything did get.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, there's a reason I usually come in person. My kids are all like screaming in the background right now. So anyway, so motion to approve, I'll make a motion to approve the requested boundary line adjustment to transfer 23,521 square feet of land and 50.1 feet of frontage from parcel 1 to 6 Parkside Drive as presented in application number Z 2023-0078 and supporting materials subject to the following condition of approval. Within 180 days of permit issuance, applicant shall record the final survey plat in the Montpelier Land Records Office per the procedures detailed in 4405 of zoning regs as modified by section 3510 for boundary line assessment adjustments, including the locations of all applicable survey rods and markers, and to the access and utility easement contained therein.
I would second that motion.
All righty. Motion from Catherine, second by Sharon. All right. So we have any discussion here to refine it, or do folks feel that it hits the nail on the head? I think it hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, and shorter than what I proposed.
Hey,
Well done,
Meredith, I have a quick question for you, Meredith.
Yeah.
With the easement, the property owner having both parcels and then putting an easement across the parcels, doesn't the easement distinguish with a merger? I'm confused how he can have an easement over ownership of 2 parcels that he owns.
Right, but he currently owns them, but they're separate parcels. They are legally distinct parcels since the subdivision in 2003 or 2005. And so, I mean, we did this with Vine Street where the easement was created because it's in relation from one parcel to another. And this allows for the sale of the other parcel.
But are we sure that we're not over, if we're gonna make him go get an easement now, are we sure that we're not over complicating this for the attorney that he goes to and potentially increasing his legal expenses?
The problem is we've had, so I'm just going to flag this out there, that we've had situations where we've had subdivisions and then the original easement was never recorded. So that easement never actually happened. And so somebody could have then sold that property without that easement having been in place if it was to someone who is not a savvy property purchaser. And so I mean, given the guidance I've gotten from city council, I honestly don't think that this is, I think this is the way we need to go. If you think requiring that it be recorded in 180 days, the easement being recorded, if you think that's up too far and think that,
Yeah,
I
I think
don't,
we should drop, my preference is to drop the easement language. If he were to sell this parcel or put a home on it, then sell it, he would have to then put an easement on the parcel. I think we're overcomplicating this potentially.
so can I just flag something, right? So if you go back, right, to our the subdivision regulations. No, actually the front, if we do this without the easement being in place, we're in violation of the zoning regulations and the frontage requirement. So in section 3002, street frontage, an existing parcel, which currently lot 1, the one in the rear, the bigger one, is existing. An existing parcel without the minimum required frontage must have access to the public or private street over an easement or right of way approved by the DRB. So we can say that there's a proposed easement, but unless we somehow require that easement get recorded, there's no easement until it's recorded, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's also a vacant parcel. I mean, I personally think the language that you originally had is good enough and it's clear and concise. And to Rob's earlier point, I think we're overcomplicating this with a mandatory easement language. And my preference would be to just keep it simple. I want to approve this. I think we all do. I'm just concerned that we might create more headaches for this landowner than we all want to.
Some of the plats, or maybe all the plats, do distinguish it as easement and common. I'm not sure how that applies to what we're discussing.
But
You own both parcels though, but yeah.
I certainly appreciate, Michael, your point of view, and it's very sympathetic to our plight in just wanting to make this as simple and as possible to bring it up to date to current living conditions. And that's all we want to do, really. And I really respect your speaking out to this issue, and thank you very much for considering the financial issues of decisions that are made by the DRB, and not only in present but in future as well. So thank you, Michael. I think obviously we certainly agree with your point and think it could be handled in a much simpler and less costly way, and almost penalizing us for the situation. So thank you.
Well, Michael, I see where you're coming from. But the more I look at it, the more I lean towards, I think it's good that we just require and execute it right away. I think, for one, there's an existing easement that provides access to the existing configuration of lot 1. We're adjusting the boundary. So in effect, we're adjusting that, that easement, and that requiring a new one that clearly, voids the old, and makes it very clear so that the moment at which lot 1 sells, it's ready to go. There are no issues whatsoever, and just abundantly clear of what the access is and what the rights are. And I think, Meredith made a good point that if this were a brand new subdivision, that would be our process for, documentation required at the time of recording the, the survey plat. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I guess I would also just add that that as the application is presented, it's simply changing, it's swapping the frontage from one property to another, swapping the easement from one property to another, and that those are all the pieces that are happening there. And that if we suddenly are not recording an easement, or that's just not part of it, then that's a much bigger change, and overall. So that, to me, to make it the sort of simple boundary adjustment that it is, we need to make sure that it is just swapping over so that the easement is recorded properly for the other property. And I don't know, I think it's important.
I think otherwise it would be a cloud on title.
It could be, for
Right.
sure. If it didn't end up getting recorded at all, it would be a cloud on title because there'd be a question of whether or not the lot one had any rights to get to the road.
Exactly. So in a sense, we're protecting the Jollies' interest in that other parcel as well.
And
I
the
mean, they could
ability
also
to,
take, I don't want to overcomplicate it, Meredith. I would vote yes on this application, but in that scenario, you could just handle that at closing. You could just create the easement at the transaction. But either way, I'll defer to Meredith. I vote yes, even though I've now muddled this up. And
Yeah.
I just think these things are complex enough, and the simpler, the better.
I suppose all this is assuming that there will be some kind of transfer of this property to another ownership. If there's not, isn't this all a moot point?
Well,
Mhm.
okay, we're getting old.
Yeah. Like, that's immaterial. I mean, that's my point. This makes the presumption that there will be some transfer of ownership. And if there's not, this is all a moot point.
Right, but
So-
it is still a separate parcel, you know? I mean, I think that's what Meredith, and what's very convincing to me is that it is a separate parcel. So the potential for a sale is always there, whether it's with you guys or the guys after you or however that works. It'd be good to have it tidy.
Yeah. I mean, no sale. What does no sale do to this argument?
Okay, don't go there.
No, well,
so Bill, the problem is we have to prepare for all of the eventualities. If you were never ever going to sell, you could have merged it back into one parcel and it would have just been me, right? So because you want to keep them separate and you want to make this transfer, we have to actually check all the boxes. And my point of view, the board can make its decision how it wants to, and I have to follow that. And that's the decision I write and the permit I issue, because at this point it's the board's permit. My personal, the way I do things is check the boxes, dot the I's, and then later on there's no questions and there aren't, you don't have conflicting documents where you have you get a plat recorded, but then the rest of the legal stuff doesn't get recorded because something happens, right? There's another you have something go on, records get lost. You only recorded one, you didn't get around to the easement. Something happens, somebody else has the property, they go to try and sell, but there's no easement, right? This just sort of sets it up and makes sure it's all set in stone so that it's easier to, if you want to transfer, deal with it. The board, the board can approve what it wants. I try and guide as best as possible to go as close to the regulations as we can.
That's a good policy.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will do a roll call vote here. Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Brian, muted. Michael,
Yes.
Rob, myself votes yes. Brian, can you unmute yourself and vote yes or no?
Wonder if we lost him somehow,
Okay, we
but
have
that still was
Cool.
5.
technical difficulties. We have 5 and we have 1 not present.
I can say sort of abstained, not available.
I guess. Sure. Perfect. So that is approved with 5 yeses and 1 abstention. And Thank you, Bill and Jean, for coming in. Thank you, Mark, for your comments. Appreciate it. And we have a couple orders of business, but that is the end of the Parkside Drive application.
Thank you both.
Well, thank you very much, the DRB and everyone, for giving it such thorough thought and review. We appreciated that. We frankly, honestly, concerned about the future as well, and make sure that everything's in place. As you can tell from the 2003 and 2005 setup, that much of this was anticipated, and therefore we understand and recognize the need to do that. So again, thank you very much. And Michael, again, thank you very much for your thoughts and support. And with that, Meredith, I guess the next time we speak will be about the review that we need to put forth to follow up with the conditions.
Yep. So there's what's going to happen next is I will work with Rob on a written decision that'll memorialize everything that happened tonight. And so when that's ready, we'll also issue the permit, and I will probably email you just because of mail issues to have you come and come to our new offices to pick those up. And then, yeah, you'll work with Rick and whoever your attorney is to get the final survey plat on Mylar to be recorded and the easement, and we'll go from there. But we'll work on those final bits together.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I know how to find you. I will see
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Sounds good, Bill.
It's nice to see both of you.
Meredith, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, good night. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, thank you. On to the next. So we have two sets of meeting minutes to approve this evening. One is from June 5th, and it appears that we do have a quorum. No,
you need to have 4 for a quorum.
3. We do not have a quorum for that one.
But you have
Okay.
your new, didn't we change our rules of procedure?
We do.
So that you don't have to have a full quorum, right? Wasn't
Yes.
that one of the things I
this is 2
did?
months- This is 2 months old, so I do think that we should address this if there's not any objections from
You've got 3.
the three of the 4 that were there, and new members of the board. So without an objection, I would accept a motion for approval of these minutes unless there's any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Sharon, second by Alex. All right, Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Michael,
You're back.
No.
and Rob, myself votes yes. Michael, was that a yes or a no?
Yes, I wasn't at that particular one, but yes.
So you can abstain.
You can abstain.
That's fine. I trust you, Meredith. I'll put a yes next to your name.
All right, we have a minutes. Minutes are approved from the what was that, the 5th?
Yep.
Yes.
All righty. Next order of business will be the minutes from 6/19. All right. We'll at least discuss who was there and who was not. I believe that Michael, Alexander, and Rob, and Sharon, we have 4 for this one at least. So with this one, let's just only vote if you were there. So I'll only call a roll call for the people that were there. We have a motion for approval of the minutes from June 19th.
So moved.
All right. Motion
Second.
from Alex, second from Sharon. So Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
and Rob, myself votes yes. And Catherine and Brian, you okay with this abstention since you're not there?
Yeah, I'm happy to abstain since I wasn't there. So.
Yes,
Wonderful.
that's fine.
Great. 2 abstentions, and 4 in the affirmative.
Awesome.
Great. I think we have succeeded.
I might make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wonderful. That is great.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Have a
Nice
great
seeing
day.
you all. See you
Thanks for
later.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you for some lively discussion.
Great.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
You
Everyone,
too.
bye.